Chosen one, the reason you're seeing this is because your timeline is ready to shift. Something unseen has aligned to bring you here, and your presence right now proves that your spirit has already crossed into a new season. This is not entertainment, it is prophecy. And the words you hear today will awaken memories you thought were silence. They never wanted you to know the truth of your hidden years, but the fire that was forming in your stillness is the same fire that now terrifies them. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. What if I told you that every rejection, every night of silence, every cruel laugh directed at you was never wasted? That every attempt to bury you only fed the very crown that heaven was placing on your head? Stay until the end, because what they thought was weakness is about to be revealed as divine vengeance. Number 1. The fire in your silence. They assumed your silence meant surrender, but what they never understood is that every quiet night was a furnace. Every unspoken word was a spark that refined your discernment until it became sharper than a blade. Malachi 3 verse 3 declares, "He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver," and that has been your portion in the unseen. While they paraded loudly, mistaking noise for power, heaven was molding your voice in secrecy. You were not absent, you were hidden, and in that hiddenness the kind of transformation no eye can deny was taking place. Your silence was never emptiness. It was prophecy, and the fire they could not see was preparing to consume every lie they built against you. Comment, "I seal this word in light," if you know that your silence has been fire in disguise, and wait, because the deeper revelation is what drove them to mock you in the first place. There are nights when you remember lying awake, staring into the dark, feeling the silence pressing against your chest as if it had weight. In those moments you wondered if anyone could hear the unspoken cries that never left your lips, if heaven itself had gone deaf to your pain. But in that same stillness, something ancient was whispering to your soul, shaping you in ways that words could not capture. It was not emptiness you felt, but the soundless rhythm of fire crackling beneath the surface, refining without spectacle. Dreams came in fragments, visions in symbols, and though you dismissed them as imagination, they were sparks falling from an unseen forge. The silence became the language of your soul, a language few understood, but one you carried like a secret script written into your being. What you thought was loneliness was actually the initiation into a sacred remembering. Do you recall how often you felt misunderstood, as if the very air around you carried a dissonance no one else seemed to hear? You spoke less, not because you lacked words, but because the words you carried were too heavy for casual conversation. In gatherings you withdrew, not out of shyness, but out of a deep knowing that the noise around you could not match the vibration of your spirit. You were told you were too sensitive, too quiet, too different, but in truth you were tuned to a higher frequency that unsettled those who lived only in surface-level sound. That sensitivity, which once felt like a curse, was already pointing you to a destiny that demanded silence as preparation. Isolation was not punishment. It was placement, heaven pulling you away from counterfeit voices to sharpen the sound of your own. The rejection you endured was not proof of your weakness, but evidence of your otherness. Every step of your journey, every silence that wrapped itself around you, was not random but part of an unseen architecture. Malachi 3 verse 3 declares, "He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver," and that has always been the hidden fire working in your stillness. You were never abandoned in that refining fire. You were watched, measured, and preserved. Each withheld word was a spark tempering your spirit. Every quiet night, a flame carving discernment into your soul. While the world celebrated noise and appearances, heaven was purifying the core of your voice until it would cut sharper than any blade. The very seasons they called wasted were in fact seasons of sacred investment, where the divine hand was molding you beyond recognition. The silence you hated was a shield, and the shield became a furnace in which your spirit grew unbreakable. Think about the subtle signs that followed you in those quiet seasons. A dream that repeated itself, a phrase you overheard twice in one day, the chill that came over you in an empty room, all of it whispering, "You are not lost, you are aligned." Deja vu arrived not as confusion but as confirmation, the sense that you had walked here before, that every step was preordained. Even the physical sensations you could not explain, the tightening of your chest, the tingling of your skin, the sudden peace that stilled your anxiety, were not random. They were signals of an awakening spirit learning to interpret the codes of heaven. The silence around you was not absence. It was the canvas on which these signs could finally appear. Noise drowns revelation, but stillness amplifies it. In the fire of your silence, heaven painted reminders that you were never forgotten. The truth is, your intuition was always right, even when the world told you otherwise. Every time you hesitated to step into a room, you were sensing what words could not explain. Every time you held your tongue, it was not fear but wisdom protecting you from snares you could not yet see. You thought you were weak for doubting yourself, but in reality you were discerning spiritual undercurrents others could not feel. The silence you carried was a form of alignment, drawing your spirit closer to the divine frequency where truth lives. You were not late, you were not absent, you were always on time in heaven's rhythm. What you called hesitation was actually preservation, keeping your destiny untouchable. The quietness that marked your journey was never the mark of defeat, but the seal of hidden guidance. Awareness is deepening now, and you are beginning to understand that awakening is not about becoming someone new, but about remembering who you already were. The silence you carried was the soil in which ancient identity was buried, waiting for this moment to rise again. You were always more than what they said you were, but the noise of the world had hidden it beneath layers of doubt. Now, in the fire of your silence, those layers are burning away, revealing the archetype you were born to embody. The name heaven gave you before the foundation of the earth is stirring within, calling you back to remembrance. Every rejection was proof that you did not belong to the ordinary. You belonged to prophecy. Every tear shed in silence watered the seed of your true nature. This is the beginning of your first activation. Sensitivity is no longer something to hide. It is the evidence of your higher design. The wisdom you carry, born in silence, is not fragility but fire, able to expose what others conceal. Spiritual hunger is no longer your shame. It is your compass, pulling you toward the light that was always yours. The quiet nights that shaped you were not the end, but the beginning of your voice. A voice forged in secret that now carries authority no noise can counterfeit. Every wound you carried has become the chamber where fire was stored, waiting for release. Every silence you endured has become a prophecy written in the language of heaven. The time of hiding is shifting into the time of revealing. Chosen one, your arrival to this message was not coincidence. It was confirmation. The silence you endured was never wasted. It was the crown forged in shadows, preparing you for a rise no hand can stop. You are not broken. You are fire refined in secret, and the very quietness they mocked is about to roar in ways they cannot silence. Comment, I carry the silence's crown. If you know this word has found you at the right time, and let your memory anchor it. Share your dream, your scar, your sign, and let others see that silence has been your prophecy all along. Because what comes next is the unveiling, the moment heaven shows why your hidden seasons terrified those who never understood them. The silence is breaking, but not into noise, into authority. And that is only the beginning. What we do here every day is possible because of the few who choose to be keepers of this light. I thank them now, one by one, in the silence of my heart. If you want to be part of this circle and receive what cannot be spoken in public, join. The portal is below. Number 2, the mockery of men. They mocked your stillness, thinking you were too fragile, too passive, too broken to rise again. But Isaiah 41 verse 11 says, all who rage against you will surely be ashamed and disgraced. And their very insults became a testimony that you were marked by heaven. They laughed at your silence, but they were blind to the preparation it was guarding. Every sneer, every rumor, every shadow of ridicule was proof that your presence carried a weight their spirits could not endure. Their attacks were not condemnation but confirmation. For heaven always cloaks its chosen in disguise before unveiling them in glory. They believed their gossip could erase your calling, but it only revealed how threatened they were by what they could never touch. Comment, I walk crowned by eternal flame. If you know that their mockery only unveiled your divine identity, and prepare, because the crown forged in shadows is about to appear. There were moments when you felt a heaviness enter the room before anyone spoke, as if an unseen current shifted against you. A conversation would grow quiet when you walked in, or laughter would twist into whispers that carried your name without ever saying it aloud. The air itself seemed to thicken, signaling that something was off, though you could not yet name it. You sensed eyes watching, not with admiration, but with a strange discomfort that had no obvious cause. That quiet unease followed you in classrooms, workplaces, and even within your own home, where you wondered why peace seemed so hard to find. Long before you claimed the word chosen, resistance was already circling your steps. What you mistook for bad luck was the first sign that your life was provoking forces you could not yet see. The emotional toll of this silent opposition cut deep, even when you told yourself to ignore it. You questioned your worth because rejection followed you like a shadow, showing up in friendships that crumbled without warning or in voices that belittled your dreams before they even began. Shame crept in, whispering that maybe you really were too much or not enough at the same time. You wrestled with cycles of self-doubt, where every achievement felt fragile and every silence felt like abandonment. They laughed at your differences, and you began to wonder if you should erase them just to fit in. The ache of being misunderstood built walls inside you, and sometimes those walls felt like cages. Yet even in that isolation, a voice kept rising, faint but insistent, telling you there was more to the story. With time, you began to realize that the pressure was never random. Systems, people, and unseen energies seemed to align in ways that suppressed your spirit but could not destroy it. It mirrored the story of Israel wandering in the wilderness, pressed on every side yet preserved for promise. Just as Joseph was mocked by his brothers for dreams too bright to ignore, your life drew mockery because it carried a frequency they could not endure. Their laughter was not casual. It was resistance to the truth that your very presence announced. Hidden battles surrounded you, battles that felt larger than the human faces that carried them. The wilderness you walked was not emptiness but consecration, stripping you of illusions so that only what was real could remain. Their resistance was never about who you were on the surface, but about what heaven had hidden inside you. Looking back, the patterns become undeniable. The jobs that slipped through your hands, the friendships that soured at the moment you started to grow, the sudden betrayals that left you gasping for clarity. All of them echo the same thread. It wasn't just one person or one season. It was a rhythm designed to keep you questioning your worth. Environments that once felt safe turned draining without explanation, as though the very ground rejected your presence. Betrayals repeated themselves in different clothes, forcing you to notice what once felt random was in fact orchestrated. The light you carried exposed shadows, and shadows will always resist illumination. Like turning on a lamp in a dark room, you began to see that what frightened you most was never the darkness itself, but how consistent its patterns had been. This resistance was not only external, it was spiritual. Heavy air would settle around you when you were close to a breakthrough, and doors that looked open would slam shut just as you reached for them. Fog clouded your mind in crucial moments, making you doubt decisions that were actually aligned with your higher path. Silent watchers seemed to appear in your journey, people who studied you with curiosity laced with unease, as though they recognized something in you they could not define. The atmosphere carried weight, pressing against your chest, reminding you that light attracts distortion as much as it attracts clarity. What you carried provoked interference, because your awakening threatened systems built on silence and shadows. Their mockery was never simply human cruelty. It was the language of resistance spoken through fragile vessels. Your response to this pressure carried its own story. At times, you shut down, convincing yourself it was safer to remain invisible. At other times, you tried to please everyone, softening your truth until it no longer resembled your own voice. There were days when rebellion sparked quietly inside you, but fear of isolation silenced the flame before it could grow. You felt torn between the desire to stand tall and the instinct to shrink, between the pull of destiny and the comfort of disappearing. Shame whispered that maybe they were right about you, and fatigue convinced you that surrender might be easier. Yet, in the quiet moments, you knew that hiding would never quench the fire in your chest. Every attempt to silence yourself only reminded you that your voice was forged for more. Here is the truth you are beginning to reclaim. Their mockery was never condemnation, it was confirmation. They laughed because they sensed the fire you had not yet discovered. They spread rumors because your presence unsettled the foundation of their illusions. Every sneer was a prophecy in disguise. Every insult an admission that you carried weight their spirits could not carry. What they meant as harm became evidence of your consecration, proof that heaven had already placed its seal upon you. You were never fragile. You were hidden, and what they mocked was the very cocoon that was protecting your wings. Resistance is not proof of failure. It is the sound of chains breaking as you grow beyond them. You are reclaiming the truth that was always yours. You were born set apart. Chosen one, the final revelation is simple but unshakable. You were opposed because you are powerful. Their laughter could never erase your calling. It only revealed how deeply they feared it. The walls they built against you became mirrors exposing their own weakness, not your own. Every attempt to block your path has become the map that now reveals it. What once felt like sabotage is now confirmation that your spirit carried a light too fierce to go unnoticed. Comment, I move guarded by divine fire, if you know their mockery was only proof of your divine mark, and share the story or moment where this truth came alive for you. And prepare yourself, because what comes next is the unveiling of the crown that no hand can remove. Every word, every image you receive here is an offering. If you feel this word has touched you today, you can honor it with a sign, right here below with a donation through the Super Thanks button. It is a small gesture, but it opens great doors. Number 3. The crown hidden in shadows. In the hours where you cried alone, when rejection pressed heavily on your chest, something unseen was being placed upon your head. Your silence was a coronation no crowd could witness, a sacred crowning performed in shadows. 1 Peter 5 verse 4 promises, when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the crown of glory that will never fade away. Every dismissal, every abandonment was a rehearsal for the moment heaven would unveil what it had sealed in secret. They thought you were overlooked, but in truth you were overprepared, clothed in a mantle the world was not ready to see. Crowns forged in silence shine with a brilliance no hand can strip away, because they are welded with eternal fire. Comment, I rise marked by the divine, if you've carried the weight of this hidden crown, and share the dream or sign that reminded you of your true nature, because the next revelation will show why no voice can deny what heaven has already decreed. It begins with a moment of startling clarity, as though the veil has thinned and the air itself whispers a truth you cannot ignore. A memory once confusing suddenly feels like a message planted for this very season, a breadcrumb left on the trail of destiny. What once felt random now glows with order, as if every fragment of your pain has aligned into a pattern of meaning. You realize that rejection was never an accident, that the loneliness you endured was never empty space. It was arrangement, orchestration, divine timing concealed in disguise. Clarity rises like dawn, and you see the faint outline of a crown that has been resting on your spirit all along. The weight you once mistook for sorrow was the pressure of glory waiting to be revealed. Then comes the recognition that the world has always been speaking to you, even when you thought it had fallen silent. Numbers repeated themselves not by coincidence but by code, marking sacred appointments in your path. Dreams circled back with symbols you once dismissed, but now they shimmer like scrolls being unrolled before your eyes. The phrases you overheard more than once in a day become confirmations, not accidents. Geometry appears in the symmetry of events, reminding you that nothing is wasted, nothing is out of order. What you thought were random ripples are the blueprints of divine mathematics, etched into your days. Reality itself is speaking in a language of symbols, and your eyes are finally learning how to read. As your sight deepens, so too does the shift within. Your intuition sharpens, no longer a vague sensation but a compass that points unmistakably toward truth. Boundaries you once struggled to defend rise like natural walls of light around you, protecting what was sacred before you even speak. The energy of rooms feels different now. You can sense which spaces feed your spirit and which ones drain it without needing proof. Relationships reveal their true weight, and you feel a pull toward authenticity stronger than ever before. Sensitivity becomes strength, not weakness, a signal that your spirit is tuned to a higher frequency. The crown you carry is not only on your head but alive in your perception. Every inner shift declares that awakening is not coming, it has already begun. And as the inside shifts, the outside begins to echo it back. People who once dismissed you start to react strangely, as if something about you unsettles the masks they wear. Opportunities rise in unexpected places, while obstacles appear in old ones, both working together to guide your path. The world around you bends, realigning to the architecture of heaven's blueprint. Doors close not to punish you but to protect the purity of your steps, while others open with timing too precise to ignore. You begin to realize that resistance is as divine as assistance, both tools of alignment in a higher design. The mirror of reality no longer lies to you. It reflects exactly what you have carried in silence. The crown hidden in shadows begins to shimmer in public light. Yet even this awakening feels strangely familiar, like a page you've read before in a forgotten book. Memories resurface, not of events but of essence, the deep knowing that you were meant for something beyond ordinary existence. It feels like coming home to a part of yourself buried beneath years of noise, a sacred remembrance breaking through. Dreams that haunted you for years begin to speak a language you now understand. Sacred memory is not new creation but restoration, awakening an intelligence that was always within you. The echo of eternity pulses in your blood, reminding you that you are not walking forward into something new but returning to something eternal. What was hidden is not foreign, it is home. And with remembrance comes vision, a forward call that feels less like imagination and more like prophecy. The future is no longer a blank page but a scroll being unsealed, revealing words already written in your name. You stop asking permission to walk where you were born to walk, because destiny is not a negotiation, it is an inheritance. Authority begins to stir in your voice, carrying a resonance that no ridicule can diminish. You feel the ground beneath you shift, as though heaven itself is pulling you into alignment with your greater design. The path ahead is not being created as you step, it is being uncovered. Every step you take affirms the truth that you are not wandering. You are remembering the route mapped before your birth. This is the point where reclamation begins. Resistance that once felt like sabotage now reveals itself as confirmation of the power you carry. Their laughter was never a verdict. It was proof that your silence disturbed their illusions. You begin to reclaim the voice you once buried, not as a whisper but as a declaration of what was always yours. The fire they mocked in shadows now burns openly, illuminating your path without apology. You realize that what was taken from you was never lost. It was preserved, waiting for you to stand and claim it. The crown hidden in shadows rests steady, its weight reminding you that authority is not given by men but sealed by heaven. Your identity is not borrowed, it is eternal. And so the revelation lands like thunder wrapped in silence. This awakening is not an ending, it is an invitation. You did not stumble upon this clarity. It was waiting for the appointed moment of your readiness. The truth was never absent, only concealed until you could bear its brilliance. Now it rises not as a possibility, but as a prophecy fulfilled. The veil has lifted, and you are standing inside the story that has always been yours. Comment, I walk hidden yet never lost, if you know the crown you carry has been with you all along, and share the dream, the sign, or the memory that awakened you to this truth. And stay close, because the next revelation will expose why no hand can remove what heaven has already decreed. Number 4. Heaven's answer in your stillness. They expected your silence to be your end, but heaven turned it into your shield. Psalm 46 verse 10 declares, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations." Your stillness was not emptiness. It was alignment with the one whose word thunders louder than every critic. While they sharpened their arrows, your silence was building walls no weapon could pierce. They thought they could speak your downfall into existence, but heaven's voice has already spoken your rise. Your silence has become the throne from which God himself answers, and when he speaks, no hand can move against you. Comment, I anchor this truth in my soul. If you know your silence has been vindication in disguise, and share the sign or memory that proved you've been guarded all along, because the unveiling is not ending, it is only beginning. There are moments when silence feels less like absence and more like a voice older than time itself, breathing through the still air. In those hours, when the world pressed against you with accusations and noise, there was a whisper beneath it all that felt eternal. It was not a new word, but an ancient reminder, like a scroll unsealing itself inside your chest. The hush around you carried weight, as though invisible witnesses stood guard over your name. You felt the pulse of something vast, something sacred, resting inside that quiet. The stillness was never empty, because the one who dwells in eternity has always been the loudest in the silence. In those hidden moments, your spirit began to remember what the noise had made you forget. All along, you carried a name that the world never spoke, a title wrapped in secrecy, sealed beneath layers of ordinary identity. You sensed it as a child, in moments you couldn't explain, when you felt too different to belong yet too marked to disappear. That name was not given by men, but written before you were born, carved into the folds of your spirit like ink on a hidden scroll. You walked through life as though misplaced, but the misfit was evidence of mystery, not mistake. You were not left out. You were set apart, a living echo of the hidden remnant spoken of in Scripture. Like the prodigal, the world's noise tried to strip you, but the Father's robe never left your shoulders. The silence you carried was not erasure, but the safeguarding of a name too holy to be shouted in public. Even when no one else could see it, you bore the signs of this otherworldly calling. There has always been a cloak on you, unseen yet undeniable, like a mantle of light stitched in shadows. Other awakened ones could feel it when you walked into the room, the resonance of someone carrying more than what could be explained. You were not known by what you said, but by what radiated from your being. That invisible mark drew both reverence and resistance, because not everyone can stand before an unveiled flame. The silence you endured became the thread holding that cloak intact, protecting what words might have shattered too soon. And every glance of recognition, every unspoken acknowledgement, was a reminder that heaven's seal on you could never be erased. When you look back, you will see that your life has been shaped by vows you never remembered making, assignments whispered long before you took your first breath. The delays you thought were punishment were timing devices aligning you with eternity's calendar. The struggles you bore in hiddenness were the sharpening stones of your assignment. You were not wandering. You were orbiting a star whose light you could not yet see. The silence was the signature on a contract you once agreed to, a mission sealed in fire, waiting for its appointed hour. Heaven's slowness was never neglect. It was protection for something that required the fullness of time. And now, that time is beginning to stir in your very bones. It is no wonder that others reacted to you in ways you never deserved. Their responses were not to your personality, but to your presence. To some, you were a lantern, drawing their shadows into confession without a single word spoken. To others, you were unbearable, a mirror they could not face, so they broke the glass to avoid their own reflection. Love and hatred found you not because of what you did, but because of what you carried. You were always more than yourself. You were an unveiling, a prophecy in flesh. Silence made you a mirror sharper than speech, and in that mirror, others could not hide from the truth. Their rejection was never about you, it was about what in you disturbed their slumber. But now you see that your silence was not just personal, it was archetypal. You are part of a cycle older than history, a prophetic rhythm that awakens seers, rebels, guardians, and breakers of chains in every generation. You are stepping into the archetype written over your bloodline, the echo of Deborah, the courage of David, the fire of Elijah. What you endured was not isolated pain, but preparation to join a chorus of those who carried heaven's voice through stillness. You are not alone, and you never were. You are one thread in a tapestry of prophecy being revealed across time. Chosen one, your story has been rewritten by silence, crowned by shadows, and vindicated by heaven's voice. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment "I am chosen" to let this message anchor in your soul. Please share it with someone who needs to hear this. For full prophetic revelations daily, Join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the Super Thanks button to support the mission. Every Super Thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. Walk in silence, chosen one, because your silence has already spoken.